Welcome to miniatures.de, your military miniatures magazine. In this issue, we will convert a 1:76 scale Airfix Confederate infantryman into an officer of the British Light Infantry serving in the American Revolutionary War in 1777. This conversion is possible because British Light Infantry did not wear their uniform coats in the 1777 Pennsylvania campaign, nor in many of the later campaigns in the South. Instead, they had sleeves with cuffs and wings sewn to their waistcoats and wore these as a more practical campaign uniform. In light of serious casualties caused by enemy sharpshooters, British officers had learned to become less conspicuous on the battlefield by wearing the same uniform as the rank and file. The only thing that makes this figure an officer are the expensive boots he's wearing. Apart from that, this entire conversion project applies equally to the rank and file of the light infantry. We begin by soldering a bayonet to the musket. The bayonet is a tiny sliver of plastic taken from the base of another Airfix miniature. Musket and bayonet are held together by plasticine, so that we have our hands free to solder and fuse these parts together. There's a separate tutorial explaining this technique, which will be linked in the description. Once the first weld has been completed, the other three sides of the bayonet can be soldered to the musket. One unique feature of Airfix soft plastic miniatures is that their muskets and bayonets are flexible. They don't bend out of shape or break if we handle them during wargaming. Now flatten the folds above the left boot to extend the boot all the way to the knee. The other boot appears to be okay. All we have to do here is brush the mold line back into the material. Now we'll give Johnny Reb a military haircut. Remove the long hair over his ears, but leave a narrow strip of long hair at the back of his neck where we're going to attach the pigtail. Now engrave many fine lines using the sharp edge of the spatula to give the hair some texture. This will look very realistic when it's painted later. Now we're adding pointed cuffs to his waistcoat, like those worn by the light company of the 40th Regiment of Foot. Place diagonal cuts at the upper edge of the cuff and use the flat side of the spatula to flatten the cuff afterwards. Next up are the so-called wings worn by grenadiers and light infantrymen. These are easy to make from milliput, pressed against the shoulder and shaped into wings using a modeling tool. We've made epaulettes in another tutorial using green stuff, which worked equally well. Now place a small amount of green stuff at the back of the neck of the miniature. Shape it into a pigtail and the ribbon with which the pigtail was bound. That done, place a narrow strip of milliput across the miniature's hat and shape it into a fashionable ostrich feather worn by grenadiers and light infantry at the time. Finally, cover the soldier's water bottle with Milliput and shape it into a haversack. This haversack will be different from the ones we made in previous tutorials. It doesn't have a large lid, but only a narrow flap which is buttoned at the top of the haversack. Press the Milliput firmly against the miniature and carve it into a rectangular shape. Now sculpt the flap by drawing a dividing line across the top section of the haversack and placing buttonholes with the pointed end of the tool. Depending on the weight and shape of its contents, the haversack will show different folds, which can be recreated with the concave side of the modeling tool. More folds are added to the sides of the haversack so that we have something to paint later on. Right, and this is what Johnny Rep looks like now that we have converted him to an officer of the British Light Infantry. Thank you for watching. For more information, please visit our website at miniatures.de.